So yeah, I'll duplicate the last two, or I'll make two of the same to make my idle animation. Frame 7, I'll bring both of these hands down. And I'll just modify them so they're closed. Stroke. Okay, so let's bring this stuff into Unity next. I suppose I just open up Unity before I do anything else. I'm going to open up the Pong one again. We'll just build everything in the Pong project. Keep it simple. And Pong still work. Okay, because I've updated my animation, I have 2 more frames. I'm going to need to export again the sprite sheet, and I'll just save it while I'm at it. Save as Piskel. I can modify later. Export as sprite sheet right now. Not GIF, PNG. And I'll put my Piskel and my PNG up on the middle in case people want to use it. Oh, which one? 04? Yeah, that one. So next we need to bring this into Unity. We can just use the drag and drop method or import assets. Let's drag it in here. And there it is. So import settings that we have to change. And right now it's coming up as just one image. We need to split it apart into the 8 different frames that it is. So on import settings, it's telling us sprite mode single. We're not single. We're in a relationship. No. It's complicated. Now, it's multiple because it is multiple sprites in this one image. Change to 1. And also, I want pixel perfect. I don't want it to smooth and blur like it did with the Pong assets, so point no filter as well. So multiple. Point no filter. Click apply. Multiple. Point no filter. And then we need to define where the different parts, how many different sprites we have in our sprite editor. So this will help us cut our sprite into individual pieces. Helps that we know what our size of each sprite is. If we pick 32 by 32, it's a 32 by 32 sprite. This is 64 by 64. And we want to slice this up. So we could try automatic and see how that goes. Just click slice. It seems to have done a decent enough job of slicing that. I can select each individual piece. Some are bigger than the others. Maybe that would be annoying, the changing size, but so yeah, actually this could lead to some issues. Just the fact that there's such a size difference, it might lead to the sprite moving around. But since we know it's 64 by 64, we can go by grid. Grid by cell size. And yeah, I know mine's 64 because we set it in Piskel. Now if I click slice, it just gives us the full frame animation. So depending on what you want, I think either one would be fine. But I'm going to stick with this for the moment. So yeah, one more time, just slice up the top. Pick either automatic or grid by cell size, and you go by cell. And then just click slice, and you are done. If you're happy with it, you just click apply. Now I've clicked apply. I have my 8 different images. I can close this window. And you can see the difference in my project panel. It has now split them out into their different frames. I'm just going to move this into my sprites folder. Yeah, we can drag individual frames one at a time just to see what our scale is like. There we can see very, very small. So there is 1 unit of Unity space. And our import settings for this by default are 100 by 100. If we want our full image to fill that frame, it's 64 by 64. We could say pixels per unit 64, and then it'll fill at least the square of our animation into that space. If we want to take up 4, divide, do some maths. No, if we wanted to take up 4, we just divide in half. So 64, click apply. You see it is a bit bigger and it matches perfectly to that grid space. Still quite small for our game world, so I might half that, 32 pixels. And it's doubled it, half it again, 16. Quadruple the size, that looks about acceptable maybe. I might even go lower than that, yeah, 8. So you see it's getting bigger and bigger. That again might be too big. 16 would be the way. Oh, let's see how it looks in game. That's probably the best way. Yeah, weird. Oh, and my colors are getting muddled up. So another import setting I should consider is its format. So there it is there. I think the colors are getting chewed up ever so slightly. I'm just going to change my format from automatic to RGBA, 32-bit, so higher color density and alpha gel. And we should see a change in this model here when I click apply. Yes, there we go. Exactly what I want. So format is what made that change for me. And I'm sticking with 8 pixels per unit. point, no filter, and format. Okay, probably too big for the game, but whatever. I can delete him now. Now I just want to create my two animations. We create an animation by dragging two or more frames. As I was kind of saying before, we need 2 frames for an animation to happen. So I can see that my last 2 are my idle. So I could start with that, or either order doesn't matter. I'm going to start with my first 6. I'm going to select all 6 and then just drag them into the stage. And that's going to create my avatar, my animation clip, and my animation controller all in one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All 6 of them I'm going to drag into the scene. It's going to say, what is the name of the animation? What is the name of this animation? What's he doing? He's just moving. Butter, move. And I'll make a folder in sprites called animation. Animations. Butter move. That's my character, Butter. He's moving. There we go. Makes sense. And now, without doing anything else, the animation, that animation is set up to play when we press play mode. It's in my game. He's here. He's moving. He's not interacting with anything. He's no collision, no colliders. But he's there. Next, I want to bring in my idle animation for when he's not moving around. First 2, or last 2 frames together, and just drag them into my scene. Save an animation. What's happening? Is your potato man exploding? Your scale is way up. Is there import settings, the colors and all that stuff? Yeah, it looks good there. It has to be your scale. You bring that scale down, out that far, and then your camera's just a bit far away. It's still at 1.5x. It's really strange. Why isn't it? I don't get it. Anyway, it's fine. All right. So the idle is the second one. Again, I'll just select these 2 frames, bring them into my world, bring them next to it. It's going to ask me to save an animation again. I'll go to my animations folder. This is the Butter Idle. Butter Idle. Still idleness. I only need one avatar to be the character, so I can pick one of these and delete it. I'll delete this one. And I'll just call this straight up Butterface. Butterface. I'm going to want to move this through rigid body. So this basically is going to have all of the same properties as the racket. A collider, a rigid body, and a script. So I'm going to add a collider. I think box would be a problem because we're going to stick on walls with the corner. So capsule collider 2D or circle collider might work for me actually. Because it's basically circular. I think I'll go, no, capsule. capsule collider just so it doesn't get stuck on any walls, any corners, and like that. And then I can just resize its X and Y. X being the horizontal, I'm going to shrink that in just a little bit. And maybe shrink on the Y as well. So everyone's character is going to be a little bit different. I'm just going by the main body. And then the hands, I won't even worry about them. You can use the X and Y position to get it more centered. Yeah, about right. That'll do. When you're happy, just add a rigid body. 2D. He's there, he can fall to the ground. He's in the world. Okay, so we have our character avatar, we've got 2 animations, and a collider on top of it. Next, we want to look, we need to clean up after Unity. So, by creating those 2 animations, it created 2 state machines. State machines handle which animation is playing and why. It also created the 2 animation clips. We want 2 animation clips, we only need 1 state machine. So I'm going to delete the second state machine. So I only have 1. Are you sure you cannot delete this action? I'm sure. So you should have 1 state machine, 2 animation clips. Nope. Just as long as your avatar has the one that's still on it. So I'm going to check that now. Controller is set to Butterface 10, which is this one here. If I select it, yeah, 10. Just check your character. If it says empty, then you deleted the one attached to that. Just load in this one. Okay, so next we're going to load in our state machine. Just double click on it. And you'll see here is our animation. Here is our state machine. So on entry, when we press play, this state machine starts running. Oh, can't see anything working. And it currently just has one animation in it, the butter move. So that's his movement animation. Press play, and that should be running in game. There it is. Animation is running on entry. We want it to be an idle state on entry and then movement when it's moving. So we're going to load our idle animation into the state machine just by dragging it in. And then we want to say from entry, go to the butter idle by default. So right click, set state machine default state. Right mouse button, set state machine default. And just select idle. And now when I press play, he's going to fall to the ground, but he won't be moving. He's in his idle. So we're controlling the avatar already. He's there in his little fist closed idle. So next we're going to need a condition to check for to make this animation happen. We could check for movement on the x-axis, movement on the y-axis. I'll just do the x-axis, and then if we have time, I'll add in the y as well. So like an if statement, we need to check if something is happening. If a condition is being met, then run the animation. For that, we need to add a parameter. I'm going to add an int parameter to record whether we're moving in the x-axis. I'm going to call it x, capital X. Oh, it's saying no model available. I do have a model, don't I? Oh, yes, this one. So you can load in your Butterface from the hierarchy into the little button down here. If you double click on the animation just to see the animations. Butter idle, butter move. I can see them moving. See butter idle doing nothing. So let's make transitions from our idle state to our butter move state. Again, by right clicking on the butter idle, we can make a transition. I'm going to transition to butter move. Then blend between one and the other. And again, just like an if statement is looking for a condition to be true, we've set a parameter, x. We're checking if x is greater than 0, meaning something is moving on the x-axis, then it's going to transition into butter move. We can also say if x is less than 0, meaning we're moving to the left of the screen, we're also moving. So we can add a second condition. If x is greater or less than 0, transition into this animation. And then in settings, we can say how long the transition duration is going to be. I'm going to say it doesn't have exit time. Lower that duration to 0.1. And there used to be a setting for can transition to self, and you could turn that off. It's usually a good idea, but okay, let's leave that alone. I hope it's all good. Next, we want to transition back from butter move to idle. Make transition and go back. So just right click, make your transition and go back. Select the transition line. Again, I'll make those changes. Exit time off, transition duration 0.1. And in my conditions, I'm going to check if x is equal to 0, meaning we're not moving at all. So if we're equal to 0, we go back to our idle. We're not moving. If we're greater than or less than, we're going to end up in the movement animation. So while moving, hopefully, if I'm not coding this wrong, and I could be, I'm kind of winging it here. And the last thing to do is add a script to make this thing move. I'm going to basically replicate the move racket script. We'll move on the x-axis. So on the butterface object, add a new script, butter movement, butter move. Move racket script, yeah, I can just take all of this, Control C, go into butter move. Except I will change the default axis to horizontal. The float will be H or X, float X. And here, when I'm adding to my velocity settings, I want to add the X float on the X axis. So same script, just moving horizontally and not vertically, although we could do both. Okay, save and test, make sure that's actually going to move. Yay, I can move, but I'm not animating while I move. He's in his idle the whole time. Oh, I flipped over. Oh my god. Now we have a game. I can't go up and down. We didn't code it in. But the point of this is to make him animate while this is happening. So for that, I need to access a component from the script. The script is on this object here. The animator is the component I want to access. And I'm going to do this in update, not fixed update. Oh no, wait, I have to do it in update. Yeah, whoops. Oh, I might need to change this to an update. So, all right, get component, animator, And you see it's giving me an autocomplete of set float. That's because we could have used float as one of the parameters in our animated state machine. We used an integer, so we're going to use set integer. Set integer. Let me check my syntax. I think it's just X after that. Yes. Handily, it's telling me what I need to do. So I need the string name. That's the string name that we set in the state machine. And then the int value we're going to pair it with. So the value we're going to pair it with is this float x value, which handles our input. So when we're using our input, the animator is going to kick in. Now it is a float, so we're going to have to convert that float to an int as well. What are you going to do? X with a capital, and then int x. I think is the right one. I think I have that wrong. Let me check my other scripts. I got my brackets in the wrong place. So now that's the one in the state machine. This is our int x, or float x here that we're converting to an int. Everything should work now, and if it doesn't, I do apologize. He's not moving. He's still not moving. No. Okay, what's happening here? Int x greater or lesser than. We'll try any state. Okay, somehow it started working. Okay, all right. S is equal to 0. Yes, okay, finally figured it out. Okay, so I was making it too complicated by having equal and not equals and all that for the butter move. Instead, I rearranged it, and I'll redo it. People that have their state machine up, I still have the entry state as idle, but instead of using my condition twice, I can just use it once. So any state will go from any state to another state. I'll make a transition to butter idle. Well, it's not a gift. Sprite sheet. Almost, yeah. So if I just add to this transition, there's one condition of x. So when it's not moving at all, the x value will be 0. And when we move, x will be added to or minus. So instead of this greater or less than, I will say equal to 0 from any state, going from any state to idle. It will take us there. In the settings, turn off has exit time, disable fixed duration, and turn off can transition to self. And I'll even make it a little bit lower, 0.1. That's the first transition that we need to do. From any state to idle. And those 4 things are what I changed. X equals 0, meaning we're idle. From any state to butter move, right click, make transition. I'll make those setting changes as well. No fixed duration. 0.1, a tenth of a second for the transition. You cannot transition to yourself. And under the conditions, instead of adding 2 x conditions, we'll just add 1 and say when x is not equal to 0. And that's any state, butter move. Yeah, you get that. And now with just that wiring set up, I press play. He's falling. He is in his idle. I move. He is in his angry, shouty state. So there he goes. Ooh, I found a way of climbing up the wall. Oh, this is like co-op Pong. My up and down makes this paddle move, and my left and right makes my goalie work. Okay, anyway, quite kind of a messed up way of getting there, and we will do this again for our platforming, or I'm actually thinking a top-down roguelike kind of thing is something we could do instead of 2D platformer. But yeah, that is it. That's all I have. I'm not going to show you anything new. Just work on your characters, and I'll come around and help if things aren't working properly. Everything I've done is being recorded and is on the YouTube channel. If you missed anything I was saying, or you want to see me make mistakes again in HD, no problem. It's there.